So, as usual, inshallah, we'll be giving a short talk for about 5 minutes. But because of allergies, I lost my voice. A lot of people are happy. So, today, inshallah, we have a guest speaker, Imam Yusuf Wahb. He's an Imam now in Windsor. He came all the way to sit together with some other Imams. So I asked him kindly to give us a little talk about a topic of his choice, so please pay attention. And if you haven't noticed already, we have a new carpet. So say Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. And number 2, make dua for the people who contributed, especially Dr. Hadi Saleh. He's my dentist. He made a big contribution. He had a medical problem. He has been sleeping in his house for a month, and he has to stay for another 2 because there's a big problem in his back. So make dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give him shifa. He can't move. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give him a long and healthy life. Say Ameen. So please pay attention to Imam Yusuf. We don't have the mic today. We're still working on the sound system. So please pay attention. Jazakallah khair.
Assalamu alaikum. Was so long, mashallah. How are you guys?
Good.
Alhamdulillah. How's the school? Good or alhamdulillah? Do you guys know first that you're so lucky because you have Sheikh Mustafa here? No?
Yes.
I heard some people say no. Yes, right? Okay. So one quick thing I'm going to share with you before we leave, inshallah. So you memorize Quran in the school, right? Okay. Quran is the book of Allah. Yes. The Quran was the message that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed to our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, right?
Yes.
When was that? Long time ago. Like how long?
When he was 40 years old. Like 1,000.
No, I mean when in history. How many centuries back?
100 centuries. 100. 700.
Okay, so
6,000.
Okay.
1 million.
Guys, please.
The first day of the.
So that was about 14 to 15 centuries back. Something in between, right?
Yeah.
So my question to you is, how do we still have the same Quran the Prophet ﷺ was reciting? If it's 14 centuries back, and they didn't have computers, they didn't have recordings, sometimes they didn't even write, unlike the papers that we're used to now, and we still have the same, not just the general Quran, all the letters, all the words, every single thing he said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we still have it exactly as is. So how do we have that? Yes.
Because Allah said that all the books people would change them, but then he said that the Quran specifically, no one's going to be able to change it.
Great. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promised that the Quran will be preserved, right? And that He will preserve it until the day of judgment. That's right. But how did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala preserve the Quran? Yes.
People memorized it.
Sorry?
People memorized it.
People memorized it. Is that correct?
Yes.
Was that enough to have the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala preserved? So what else? Yes.
We have the Habab who took care of it, and in the book itself it told us not to change any wording from the Prophet.
Okay. Yes.
It passed on
It passed on through what?
generation.
Through generations. So through people. Yes.
Prophet told Sahaba that could write the Quran.
Okay. Yes.
The Prophet told it to many people and they kept delivering it till now. People now written it to save it and made sure it would be in a safe place.
Good. Thank you. Yes.
And then never changed the Quran.
Never change the Quran. Yes.
Also, people memorize Quran and then they have to make copies of it and put in masjids, and that's a safe place because people spend their time there with Allah.
Correct. Last one. Yes.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protected it throughout the years that come on.
Throughout your years. Jazakumullah khair. All the answers are correct. And the main thing was what you mentioned, that the people who memorized the Quran and then they transmitted the Quran to the generation that came after them, that was one of the main reasons why do we still have the same Quran that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So he promised to preserve it by his will and power subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then the human beings, we were the means that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used to preserve the Quran. Right? The Prophet ﷺ at the beginning of the revelation, when Sayyidina Jibreel used to come to him and give him the new revelation that Allah is revealing, sometimes he was so worried sallallahu alaihi wasallam that he would miss some words. He would miss some letters. So try to imagine that. Sayyidina Jibreel is coming to the Prophet ﷺ, the angel, and he's giving him the new chapter or few verses that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is revealing, and he's reciting to him the ayat, and the Prophet ﷺ is trying to repeat after him every single word and letter because he doesn't want to miss anyone. He was so worried that he would miss that because it was his responsibility that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala trusted him with. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted to reassure his heart and tell him, do not worry, because we are preserving this book. And he told him, لا تحرك به لسانك لتعجل به. So Sayyidina Jibreel is reciting, and he's still reciting, but the Prophet ﷺ is repeating, is moving his lips and tongue to repeat the same words that Sayyidina Jibreel is saying because he doesn't want to miss anything. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told him, do not worry. We have preserved that Quran. Do not hasten with the recitation of that Quran because إِنَّ عَلَيْنَا جَمْعَهُ وَقُرْآنَ. It is upon us to gather and collect that Quran in your heart, and it's upon us to make you recite that Quran. So that was the promise that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promised the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam with. Now we can understand from that what is our responsibility is that to keep carrying that message of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So if you can carry the message of the Quran, and inshallah when we get a little bit older and then we can deliver the same message, and we can teach people how to recite the Quran, how to memorize the Quran, so the generations that would come after this would carry the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If any generation among all the generations that came in the time of the Ummah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam were a kind of slackening to do this responsibility, and they said actually we don't have to memorize the Quran, we don't have to recite it, we don't have to learn tajweed, we don't have to know how to recite the words and the letters, we would have missed the Quran, right? We would have missed some chapters maybe, or some surah, or some ayat. We know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promised that this would never happen, but it was through the means of the human beings that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put a responsibility upon us, that we need to be the means to preserve the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Keep that in mind all the time you're learning the Quran. Keep that in mind all the time you're trying to learn how to pronounce a letter or a word in the Quran. And that it's a responsibility that inshallah in the future I'm going to teach the generation to come how to recite and how to memorize the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And keep in mind all the time, it's not just some words and verses that you are memorizing and kind of chanting. It's the meanings of the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we need to manifest. We need to apply in our life. When I'm someone who is carrying some parts of the Quran, I have to manifest this in my behaviors with people. I have to manifest this in my actions, in my dealings with everyone. I'm a person who knows the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I'm representing these meanings and these concepts that the Quran is telling me about. So when you carry that message, you're not carrying a number of verses or words, you're carrying the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that are meanings and concepts, behaviors and manners that we have to have in our life. Jazakallah khairan. I know that was so boring, but forgive me for being with you. And again, you're so lucky having Sheikh Mustafa with you. So try to seize the opportunity to learn from him as much as you can. Barakallah fikum. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you and your families and make you successful and give us the benefit of the talk. We'll see you tomorrow, inshallah. We have a meeting now. Jazakallah khair.
Okay, we're famous now.